Come on, come on. Oh, how we doing this evening? This is another one. I gotta touch it up just a little bit on the mix down. But this one's pretty much done. I don't know if I sent this one to Grimes yet. If I didn't, he ain't getting it. No, I'm playing. Yeah. Smooth, right? Oh, and always got a little groove to it. I like that one. Could always play that one, and by the end of it, kind of like, you know what? I'm in a better mood. Better mood than I was in. All right, so this I'm going to start working on getting this mixed down. So sounds like trash, but that's what it's about, right? All right. All right, so let's take a listen.
This is another hit.
Some of y'all might remember this. All right, so what we're gonna do here, everything might not be perfect, right? And that's okay. But what we're gonna do here now is take the time to get our stuff sorted out. We're gonna get our volumes right. We're not going to touch any of the faders, all right? This is called zero unity gain. So we're only going to level our beat. If you have a song where I got vocals, you're gonna do all of the leveling, volume leveling, but we're not gonna touch any faders, right? How might you do this, you might ask? Well, if you do not have an input gain knob for each of your tracks that you add, then you're gonna use a gain plugin, and that's gonna go here. So you're gonna use something like this, okay? And that is showing you the level of the signal coming into the mixer, and then we're gonna balance it, all right? What we're not gonna do is touch faders. So just as a quick recap, when you start to touch the faders, what you are controlling is the output volume. That refers to the volume coming out from the mixer and through your speakers. Okay, so if I make this kick, for instance, quiet here, right? It sounds quieter. You can see the volume of it went down, right? But if we put something like this, I can get plug in an EQ that has a gain meter on it, that's a volume meter. When you notice, it's still that loud. It's still as loud as you left it. So we don't want to do that because this can get us in trouble in the long run. When you start mixing and start boosting things and all that, you could actually start clipping within this track and not even know it, right? So big no-no. So put that one. All right, so we won't do it now, but normally before you start this process, you have your sounds labeled kick, snare, bell, gong, judo chop, whatever it's called, right? Name it, and we'll put it here. So that way, on your mixer, you can identify your sounds, and through your step sequencer or your channel rat, right? You know what that stuff is as well. So let's go here. I will show you or kind of give you a template on how I like to level things. If you want some things to be louder or quieter, that's on you. But I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show you why it works, okay? So my kick, they say have your kick to about -6 dB and -9 dB, right? So I reach for the floor, okay? So we're at -9. If it's a low, that's okay. Our target is to be between there. So keep it around -9, you're good to go. Snares, I like to keep my snares at about -12. There are some snares that might not be as loud here, and so you might want to make them about -9, but typically somewhere between -9 and -12. I always reach for the ceiling, right? Or for the floor. So maybe get a little bit more. Alright, for any hats that I might be dealing with, anywhere from -18 to -21 is a good starting point, right? So let's come in. Okay, that's great. For whatever reason, I don't have because it's a clap. That's loop. I got you. Let's do something here. I'm gonna actually put this here, but we'll move it. Alright. And we'll do this. And then I'm just gonna, in FL I can do this. In other programs you may or may not be able to, but generally in a DAW you can kind of move things around. In FL Studio, hold Alt, and then you can use your left or right arrow key. You can actually drag a mixer track that might not be somewhere you want it, right? You're trying to group everything together. If you have any effects on this track, it all drags with you, right? So you can move this to wherever it is we want that to be. Let's put that here. Alright. Okay. Look at some of this other stuff. It looks like we got more claps over here. Maybe that needs to go in the same thing. Interesting. Okay. So let's move this out of the way. We'll drag these all to 21. I didn't notice that before, which is weird. And I got this row here. So this has to be something I added more recently, and that's okay. So let's take 21. And then we'll drag this over to 4. Alright. So we have these claps here. We're all good to go. I might even, because it shows like music. Alright, so let's go here. We got our closed hat. It's where we want it. Let's take our open hat. Let's take a look at this one. Alright. This doesn't seem to be as loud as our closed hat. So what I'm going to do is actually raise the volume on this, right? Oh, that's super loud. Okay. So what we're gonna do here is let's go to our crash symbol here. That seems a little low too. Okay, that's good. This is Fruity. Yes, this is FL Studio. Yep, got that right. Level unlocked. I appreciate you stopping by. How you doing this evening? Go. All right. So you can kind of see how everything's already kind of loud enough, and I can hear everything. So again, this is back to the claps because they're pretty new, and I added it after I had already kind of had this mixed. But what I want to do, put this back in since everything is undone, and we're gonna do this over, right? So let's take this. Where is it? Right here. Okay, check that out real quick. So when it comes to vocals that are going to be that are supposed to blend in with the beat and be more background, I tend to shoot for about -12, but depending on the vocal, somewhere between -12 -15 is a good level in which to actually blend these sounds, right? So cover that. Okay. This is the other vocal that we have here. And so since we want these two to blend together, we definitely don't want this one louder than the other, right? If I try to make it as loud, now it kind of starts to drown out the other part, right? So I'm just going to turn it down a little bit to hear it blend in nicely. And we dropped it from -15, 3 dB down. Got it here to about -18. It's perfect. I can hear the main vocal there, and then I can hear these background vocals, alright? When it comes to bass guitar, 808, I don't care what we're using here. A good place to start is -12, right? So, see, we're about right there, and that's good. We have our brass here. Now, brass is a little different, and where you're going to actually put this, as far as like a starting point goes, is going to depend on whether this brass is it like the main thing here, is it is it just like brass only track, right? When you have brass in the mix with everything else, somewhere between -18 to -21 is a good starting point, right? Let's see if we can. Okay, so we'll leave it there. Have this little laugh here. A lot of times when I'm using effects or percussive instruments, it could be a conga, it can be a tambourine or something like that. Again, somewhere between -12, -15 is a good starting point. Okay, so with this, do that one more time. Okay, so we have that stuff there. Good. Now you might notice I have a limiter here. This is something you would like to do either while you're making music, while you're mixing into it. You can put a limiter on your master track, set the gain to 5.5 without trying to get too deep into it, right? You want to mix this between -3 and -6, right? Giving headroom for the mastering engineer, but that's not the loudest you can get the track. So by setting it to 5.5, what you're doing is you're making up for that volume, right? To get it as close to 0 as possible. And if it happens to come over, the limiter will catch it, right? But it's for you to be able to hear it louder, and then when you need to, you can always take it off, hear it at its regular volume where it should be, right? This stops you from actually turning things up too loud, and then in the end, kind of messing it up there, right? So that allows us to actually, it's quieter, but with your volume knob on your audio interface or your speakers or whatever, absolutely. However, I don't have to touch it, right? I can leave it at one level, like it here, and then I can bypass what it sounds like while it's quiet, make sure I can hear all the high stuff and make sure everything is blending together while it's quieter. And then I can also listen to it while it's louder and I can hear the low end a little bit better. And so as I'm mixing, I can be able to bypass and check for these things and make sure everything is everything. Alright, so I have this set up and routed. Okay, I have all of my buses routed here, and I named this my mix bus, or my final mix bus, right? So here I can actually see where I'm peaking. Okay, and we want to make sure we're between -3, -6, right? Alright, good. So without touching a fader, without any EQ, compression, reverb, saturation, without none of that, I'm able to balance my track and all that into the track. The pre-mix is now completed, and now we can begin the mix. So what this is going to help us do is when we get done, we can bypass, we can hear our pre-mix at our target level, and then we can hear our mix at the same target level, right? Right. So I'll try and make this fast, and I'll talk through it as I'm doing it. So I'm gonna come in here, and we want to first, with our drums, we're gonna clean them on the individual tracks. We're just going to clean them. We'll group them into a bus, and then we'll add some things on the bus track. So what I'm doing here is giving everything its own space and its own place. So first we start with low pass, high pass. We're going to come in as far as we can without affecting the characteristics or the quality of that sound too much, right? But we just want to make room because we have things that live in certain spaces. For instance, we have our 808 here, and our 808 is going to live in the sub bass areas, right? So we want the kick and the bass to play well together. Does your kick need to be at 30 hertz? No, especially when you want the 808 or your bass to specifically pick up and be in that area because you want to hear the rumble. The kick's not doing the rumble very well, right? So clear that out so that when that bass comes in, it sounds clean. It's uninterrupted, right? Next, do the low pass, right? Pushing as far as we can, coming from this side. Why? Because we have things that live up there in that space, right? Do we need to hear our kick at 18,000 hertz? No, we don't, right? We have other things that live there that are going to occupy that space, and nobody's going to miss 18K on your kick or whatever. Here, we're able to push up to about 8K, right? Without losing the kick. Don't hear anything, right? By pushing too far. Now the kick starts to sound dull. It's too far, it's a no-no. That's bad, right? Yo, Leonor in the building. Appreciate you stopping by. How you doing this evening, man? So we do that. Now, if we want to do anything else, we want to boost the kick or something, we can do that. So let's do that. I'm going to come here to about 60 hertz, and I'm going to boost this a little bit. As soon as I hear a change, for me, that's enough. I don't need to start like waiting till I hear something extreme, right? But for those of you may be working on parametric EQ2 or some kind of a visual EQ, right? I want you to keep it somewhere between 3 and 6 dB, right? Whether you're going up, whether you're going down. It's said if you have to go further than that to actually make something work, you're probably better off going and getting another sound, because chances are you might end up creating some kind of issue down the line, and that kick's not going to sound right, whatever, right? So just some advice for moving with the EQ, right? So we're just going to push this up a little bit. I heard a change. We're good there. Um, can I try and get something in more of the high-end area? We could try. Lowest I can go here is 3K. Let's see. So all this is doing is really opening up the kick. Okay, so it should be able to cut in a little better. Just a snap in that kick, right? Sounds very subtle, but hey, that's something we can do. Without it, can't really hear that kick that well, right? So these are things you think about. Okay, for me, that is okay. So we're gonna look. Our kick was at -9 when we started, but because of the stuff that we did, we have now increased that to -3. Since there's this thing that louder is better, and we're always trying to fight to make tracks as loud as it can get, this might sound good, but the moves I made might actually be bad moves. So what do? We turn the volume back to where we started. So now you can bypass. You skipped a step here, that's okay. All right, so we can bypass and hear the kick before we added the processing. And with it, okay, all we're gonna hear is the change. It's the same volume, right? Same thing, we're just cleaning up here. Snares, a lot of times, they tell you a good starting point is 100 hertz. And I'm just breaking this stuff down to you so that you kind of have it and you kind of already know why this is the way it is, and it'll help you mix faster, okay? So take this over to about 100 hertz. And why is that? Where did we just boost our kick? We boosted the kick around 60 hertz. Sometimes you'll find the punch a little further in, somewhere between 70 and 90 hertz. So at 100 hertz, what you start doing is you start cutting down, right, the volume and those frequencies in the snare so that you can actually hear the kick apart from the snare, right? We're not trying to do these hard cut off wall things, right? Just subtle. Because as the volume goes down, you're not going to notice it anyway, right? So by doing that, we leave the kick room, leave the bass room as well, because we don't need to hear our snare and those sub-frequencies. The snare, the kick, the 808, and other sounds, as those frequencies, those sounds start giving out the frequencies down in that range, they'll start to build up, and you'll start having problems in your low end, problems in your high end, whatever. So it's a good thing. Again, always, whatever sound you're building or working with, make sure you push in as far as you can on each side, right? So you can make room for everything else, and then work within the space that you have with that sound to make something sound nice, to make it not sound nice. Krilly in the building. Appreciate you stopping by. How you doing this evening? Yeah, there we go. It didn't show up, but I gave you a shout. Let's see. There it goes. All right, so we'll do something like that. So I'm already in that mode, right? So you see us doing certain things, you're like, damn, that's just fat. How do you know? Well, this is what we're looking at, right? We're already thinking about the stuff that we already did. And so with the experience we just learned over time, boom, 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 we're gone. Same thing here. So we're going to use that low pass. We're going to push in as far as we can. And we're trying not to kill that characteristic in the high end, right? That snap and all that, the presence in that snare. Once we start to do that, it's too far. Back off of it, okay? Start. Let's just loop it. See, I just got dull and it kind of lost its presence. It's too far. If you've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube, you probably heard something with Jason Joshua talking about rolling off a snare to about 8K. Right. So even if you were to, there's a little bit of like air brightness that you get right here. However, in the grand grand scheme of things when everything was playing. You don't notice it, right? But if I cut it right here, you start to lose the snare now, right? So again, it's all about bringing things in as far as you can. Keep the characteristics, right? Keep those things that are good about what you like, and then the rest of that we don't care, because there's other things that are occupying those frequency ranges, and you're not. No one cares. No one's gonna say, "Hey, I can't hear the 60 hertz in the piano," right? When the 808's going boom, 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 like you don't miss it, right? So just because you solo it, it might sound one way. Always check back with everything, and then ask yourself, do you miss it? Bypass it. Do you miss it? No. Can I still hear the sound? Does it still sound good? Keep it moving, right? Don't spend too much time on it. So let's go here. We've already pushed in to 100 as we rolled off. If I were to take this same EQ, it only stops at 100. That's it, okay? So this is not a good EQ that we are going to use for a snare if we're trying to boost the bass in the snare, right? Now on the high end, we could probably get some stuff, but then we'd be doing a little too much. So let's drag our mid EQ, okay? Which is gonna actually pick up those ranges. So same way you can do on a visual EQ, same thing you can do these non-visual EQs, right? And that is sweeping. So what we'll do, boom, take a band, narrow, not too narrow because it'll sound crazy, right? But get it at a good spot. If you're using FL Studio, I'd always advise about put the Q at about 14 to 19%, right? If you want to go a little wider, there are times you want to do it, but when it comes to drums, it's not one of those, right? So put it. Okay. What you want to do is you want to move the volume to a ridiculously high level. Some say, hey, just do -12, but you start noticing their gear limits how high they can boost, and that's okay. This is fair. You should still be able to hear changes at this loud, right? So we're gonna do this and we're gonna sweep through. Right here, it sounds very warm, right? It doesn't sound crazy, it doesn't sound weird, it just sounds really warm. I know I found the bass in this snare. That volume down. You could boost it, a little bit. What's that, about 3-4 dB? Great, right? Hear this right here? Okay. This sounds like this, okay? Sounds hollow, it sounds very boxy. You start turning up the volume here, we don't want something like this getting out, right? So typically, things like this that we hear, we'll want to drop it, right? The more I pull down, the tighter the snare seems to become. See how we found problem area? Now we've turned that into something we like. We like not hearing this, right? The more we turn this down, the better we feel. But again, if I have to turn this down to -12 to make this sound like something I like to hear, probably want to go reach for another snare, right? So, comes the problem areas I don't like, I automatically drop it down to -6. Automatic. The furthest I can go, right? Bam, nice. Alright, same thing. Potentially, if you want this, but it's not as bad as what this sounded like, right? But let's say, not as bad. Let's drop it just a little bit. So you're gonna get to an area where even at its loudest volume, it doesn't sound like it's trying to blow out your eardrums. This area is clarity. Okay? Boost your snare. You're dealing with the higher frequencies though, you want to be careful not to boost too much. That can start to hurt somebody's ears or make it very tired very fast, right? clarity out of there, right? You can open up or have that snare kind of cut through the mix a little bit more. So that's how you can find things. And then after a while, you got dealt with enough snares. I'm usually finding bass over here. I'm usually finding the clarity over here. I'm usually finding the bad parts over here. And you'll easily, quickly just start scanning these places and starting at certain points because you know it's over there somewhere, right? Same thing here. Turn this up, loud as we can get it, sweep through our frequencies. Right here, about 500 hertz, there's that boxy sound, right? Big 500, I'm gonna put a dip in it. All right, so at our 200, we could already hear that we have the bass, right? So let's set up a little bit. Then over here, what was it? I think 2K. Okay, so I'm getting 3. Either 2 or 3. Okay, so 3. Lost a little volume. You sit. Boom. Done, right? Move on. Next thing. Alright, so with hats are very energetic and they're at the very, very high frequencies. I mean, sweet spot's probably like 10K or something like that, right? So at that point, you don't really want to boost it. It can get really bright, really harsh, really fast. If you have to, a dB or 2, but if you start finding yourself going past that, may or may not be the best decision, right? So let's play. And want to get out the low end too far. Okay, that's no good. So let's keep it at about this 500 hertz mark. We push in too far, then the hats start to sound dull. They're not as present, right? Leave it at 15 on this one. Alright, and we're still close. But, sorry, it's the wrong thing. What did I do with it? Here it is. Okay, and then that's it for me. I don't go in, I don't try and EQ. I high pass, I low pass, and I leave it the hell alone, right? Like I said, you can if you want to. There will be times, but 90% of the time, a closed hat, an open hat, a crash cymbal, right? You're just gonna high pass, low pass, turn the volume if you need to, and move. Don't make things more complicated than they already are, especially in this age where we have a whole bunch of high quality sounds that we're buying right out the gate. It doesn't require you to do a ton of work, right? So, boom, go to the next one. We're gonna do the same thing here. Listening. Let's follow the same thing. Let's see. I like that. Makes it not sound too harsh. You hear that, right? So cool. And I had this at minus 18 just because it wasn't as loud at minus 21. So let's return that. Okay. Let's go into our crash cymbal. Show you. Kind of hear the whole of that, right? If I move here, now you're kind of missing some of that lower end that makes that crash cymbal, right? So let's stop it here. And then again, if you're pushing too far, it starts to sound dull. It's not as bright or sound as open, right? Not as clear. Let's come back. Great. That was minus 21. Looks like we're about minus 24 now. Okay, so if we bring these back in, right? Cool. Why do I have this down here? I even use this. Let me see, 7. I want to say that is somewhere. That you said. So this is right here. Okay. Okay, let's go here. And this is more like the hat, like just doing something there. So again, oh, too thin. That's fine with me. Oh, we can go further. You start to lose it right here. Put it to 8K. We're about minus 12. We're still here, minus 12. Doesn't add any volume back. Great, perfect. Okay, so here, let's do a similar thing. So we don't want to go in where it's like too far in, right? This might be a little too far in, right? And so what I'm gonna do is go back here to about 100, which is fine. And then that might be it. Yeah. So take it to about 8. Can we see where we are? Just a little off on volume. Perfect. And so what I want to do is take our mid EQ. All right. And kind of when you're dealing with toms, you're going to have something that's kind of like this. So you'll have your chorus, right? Boom, boom, whatever, however far you can get in. And then you're going to find low end with the bass in that. You're gonna have a big section where it doesn't sound very good at all. You're gonna put a dip there. You might even find yourself with 2 places. You're gonna put a dip, and then you're gonna have that part right where you have the attack in it, and so it kind of looks like a smiley face, right? That's kind of how I learned it. You're basically just gonna make a smiley face. So you have something like that, taking the low end, taking the high end, and then the mids are scooped. And it depends if you're using like a floor tom or whatever, where these points will be. It's gonna shift depending, but but the result's gonna be the same. It's gonna make this smiley face, right? So, all right, here we go. We're gonna turn this up. Let's sweep. See what we can find. So somewhere here or here. Right? If we start getting up to here, starts getting a little hollow. Here sounds really, really right. So we can definitely take that, put a dip there. So you can hear how that kind of changes things, right? Let's take 200. Let's go here, and then let's look for the higher frequency and see if we can't get this to kind of push through. So as it plays, I'm just checking each one. Sounds really good right there. About this 3K area, I'm getting clarity even with this at the max, right? Let's redo. There, I like it. Okay, let's see. We barely jumped over. Let's bring it down a little bit, or you can leave it where it's at. Doesn't have to be all perfect. Please do not lose sleep over your volume levels. Right? All right, so you could bring at least this stuff back. Okay, so you should be able to hear all of your drums now cleaner than they were. So let's just grab all of this. I'm just going to hit this button and it's going to turn them all off. That's what it sounded like before. No effects. Right? Then with them on. Okay, so we cleaned up stuff. We can hear it. Everything has its own space, has its own place. And here, I felt like I missed something, and I did. And so what we're gonna do is see this a little bit. Yes, okay. There we go. And it looks like we lost some volume there. Okay. Yep. Almost did. Cool. So now that we have all the drums clean, let's work on bringing those drums out, right? So if I play everything, you can hear the drums, but the drums aren't as present as you would like, right? And so most people would start saying, I just need to turn the volume up. Maybe I did something wrong when I was EQing, right? Wrong. Right? But you're not thinking 5 steps ahead. So here's what we're gonna do. One, if you want, you can do more EQ, but this is going to be more of like a general to the whole of the drums, so we don't get all surgical and all that, right? We just say like, hey, let's bring out that a little bit more. Bring out this area a little bit more, right? So you could, but you don't have to, all right? In this case, we definitely are going to EQ. So I am going to bring out this. Okay, so what I like about this a lot is as I'm boosting things, I know you can't see it, but I can tell you, right? So when we're boosting any of these, we're using shelves. Okay, so it's just giving us a low shelf or a high shelf, which doesn't look like this. Look like this. Okay, so where I will want to just come in and boost the low end, I could pick an area and then everything from there on down, or if it's a high shelf, everything from here on over is going to get a boost, right? And we're not going to be too aggressive with that. So just a little bit more. Oh shoot, I dialed that up already. aggressive, we'll just add bring it just a little bit more, right? Let's put this about here. So the way this works, if you're thinking about getting it, these two or these three knobs work together. These three knobs work together. These two knobs together, right? In other words, if I wanted to come over here to 8K and I wanted to turn it down, using the attenuation, which is dropping the volume, isn't going to turn this down to 8K. It's going to turn it down at 10K. See how that works, right? So it's like you use certain things in a certain way, and then you might have to go get something else to help you out with something else. But in this case, we're not looking to turn anything down. And again, we just want to kind of bring out a little bit more in those drums and finding those spots where we can do that and make the drums stick out just a little bit more. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to do the compression first. So let's take our compressor. Actually make this a little bigger for you guys. To apply the all so we all get bigger. So when it comes to drums, when it comes to compression, things change, but there are some general settings, right? For the most part, you'll be doing like 4:3:1 ratio on a lot of things. When you get to your drum bus, however, a 10:1 is a good starting spot, right? But we don't have a 10 on here. So you're either going to choose an 8 or you're going to choose a 12, right? I like to do 12. It's the higher you go in the ratio, the more aggressive it gets. And so we want to be able to kind of, push this down, but we're not going to do a lot, right? And the reason being is the only thing we're trying to do is get the drums to sound more consistent across the board, right? So our kicks way up here, our snares way up here, and then our hats are down here. What compression does, right? We could take a sound, we could take a waveform, right? And say the peaks are up here and say the valleys are down here. I can start to push the peaks, right? If I wanted to, till they meet the valley, right? But we don't want to go that far. We just want to close the gap, dynamic range, just enough where the drums sound more consistent. Where it's like when I'm hearing the hats, they sound about as loud as the snare, right? Even though it's not true. When it make you feel like it's like that, compression, right? You're squashing that sound. If you do it too much, it gets to sound robotic, right? Okay, and now you can't tell the top from the bottom. Everything sounds about equally as loud, right? And then you get this pumping sound, which is also not good. So, turn it up. That's cool. So, once you start passing about 6 decibels of attenuation or compression, the same thing, right? Once you start to pass that, you start to hear the sound starts to become a bit squashed, right? You'll start to hear it. And then the further you go past 6, right, or -6, then you're gonna start to hear it even more. So kind of play up until 6 point, right? Here, if you did your drums correctly and everything, you don't need to go that far. But if you want to, or you feel like that will help, go for it, right? So we're hitting about here, which is probably around 4 or 5 decibels of attenuation. It's fine, right? But a good starting place is get about 2 or 3 decibels of attenuation and see how that makes the sound you're working with feel. Does it sound like it's more consistent? Does it sound like you can hear the low and the high notes in the piano more evenly? Does it still sound like the low notes really liking this. So we're gonna bring our volume. We can actually adjust this attack a little bit. Make it a little faster. I guess trying to talk about compression without really talking about compression doesn't help, right? So call myself trying to do this quickly. When you're dealing with the attack, it's just how fast or how long it takes the compressor before it fully compresses your signal, right? This has a really fast attack, so it kind of almost doesn't matter. But in certain cases where you're using the compressor and it can do anywhere from 0.1 milliseconds up to 6 or something like that, right? Um, the best way I could put it, and you'll have to use your ears, it's going to take time, but you just have to do it. Start the attack on the fastest it could go. Once the compression starts coming in, because the compressor is compressing at max level really fast, right? If it's at point 0.1, 0.01, it's pretty fast. It's like as soon as that signal crosses over that threshold, smash, right? It leaves no room for, say, like transients to come through or anything like that. If it feels like your drums aren't hitting as hard as you would like, start to move the attack, right? As you start to sweep and move and increase the milliseconds, you're going to get to a spot where you'll actually hear the transients come through. Suddenly, it feels like your kick came back. Boom. You hear the snare like it came back, crack. And you're like, okay, that's it, right? Usually you're going to find that at about 5 milliseconds, right? Soon as you start to move that and it gets there, you're going to hear the kick and the snare come through. Right? Great. Everything else after that, the transient is going to get smashed down by the compressor, right? So that's a good way to find it. And it's not about, oh, what do I set it to? Just use your ear, sweep it, right? Because some sounds might take a lot longer before you actually start to hear the transient come through, right? And then some sounds like bass, maybe you don't want transient on the bass. Maybe it's just a guitar or some kind of synth bass, and there is no real doom like that you want to come through. Just squash it, you know? But a lot of times you're gonna look for what to set that attack to. And depending on that sound, how fast that sound is, where that transient is, your timing is gonna change, right? Let's see if we do that real quick. Cut off the drums. So let's put it on its fastest time. So when you hear that kick and that snare, you can hear it, but it doesn't sound like it's coming through very clear, right? That's because it's on, so the attack time is so fast that by the time the sound hits and it peaks over our threshold, the compressor is fully compressing that sound, turning it down by X amount of decibels. So as you start to start hearing this transient and that kick, right? But you still notice it's compressing. It's not fully compressing everything as soon as it crosses the threshold, but it takes so much time before it fully compresses, and so it actually lets the transient slip through, and then it comes down and starts doing the compressing, right? Same thing with release. Start with the slowest release time, not the fastest, right? Slower. That was taking forever to come down. Okay, you want to find the good release time? Start with the slowest time, because what it's saying is it takes this long, X amount of time, whatever that number is, before the compressor fully stops, right? Right now, it's still working even though there's no sound. See that? It hasn't reset. So we're gonna now decrease the release time. see how every time the kick or the snare, okay, it moves across the threshold, right? But when there's nothing that wants to cross that threshold, you see how quickly it goes back to reset itself? That's the perfect release time, right? Again, there's no magic number. There are some good starting points. You can start at like 100 milliseconds on a release time. That usually helps with most things. Sometimes, especially when you're like mastering, you're dealing with the whole entire track, 100 milliseconds ain't gonna cut it, right? That number is probably gonna be more. Same with your attack. That number is probably gonna be a lot higher, right? Um, as to not get like a pumping sound or butcher up your track. But here on drums, we can deal with these faster times or shorter sounds, whatever. So now, okay, after whatever crosses the threshold and the sound drops back under, the compressor's like, okay, done. Let me know when to come back in, right? Boom. All right, so again, about 3. Let's turn it up a little bit. Fine. And I did kind of do this already. Great. So now, still about -9, right? Still at about -9. But you notice that there's a difference, right? So all those sounds that were super, super high, the kick and the snare, as we go to push the peaks down, we also have to return the volume, which means the transients get a boost. Not the transients, the valleys get a boost. And so what it does is it makes the louder sounds quiet, and it makes the quiet sounds louder, right? It works in two parts, right? So now suddenly you can hear those hats a little bit better. They seem a little bit louder, and we didn't have to go over here and do anything with the volume, right? And so now what we have is more consistent drum sound. Okay, so we have that. Still wish the kick and the snare will cut through because we have this bass, right? So when the bass is not playing, it's like we hear it pretty nicely, but it's still, it could be a bit better. You have these voices and pianos and brass or whatever you have going in, and you want these drums to kind of cut through a little better. Well, that's where we introduce saturation. And one of the more popular saturations to use resources is tape, right? You take your tape saturation, and all we're doing is turning up the volume, the input, driving the signal to a point where it's clipping. But in the analog world, right? In the hardware world, when you start to do this, the distortion you get is subtle. It's not an extreme distortion like in the digital world. It's subtle. And this is where we get, right? This is where we get that sound that we're familiar with. So, to make a long story short, all we're doing is adding energy. We're driving this signal and we're making it more energetic, right? So in the lower frequencies, as we drive it, it starts to feel more warm, starts to sound a bit more full. And in those higher frequencies, it gets more energetic, and it starts to get kind of like this sizzling, almost like a crispy kind of thing, right? And they say that's the upper harmonics, right? So saturation creates warmth, then it creates or generates upper harmonics, right? So we like that. So we go through here for the tape. The lower I set this, the older the tape is. So the newer the tape is, the cleaner the sound, right? So I'm watching this cross here. Okay, so we're pushing past that 0 mark. Now you can start to hear the saturation that's generated. But don't forget, we're turning the volume up on this signal, so it's getting really, really loud. So let's gotta think ahead, right? You have to already know these things. Otherwise, you're gonna make your drums, EQ them, and you're gonna feel like I have to come up here and turn this up. No, you don't. Right? No, you don't. That's proof. No, you don't. Just gotta know what tool to use for the job. Alright, so our drums are good. Let's do it, shall we? So here are the drums here. So what we're gonna do here is we want drum or the bass and the kick. And I'm gonna say the snare. There's a reason for it. I want it to all play nicely together. Right now, when that bass hits, what you're hearing is the bass coming in. It's kind of drowning out the kick a little bit, and it's kind of drowning out that snare a little bit. That snare doesn't sound as present, right? Because bass, right? And some of you guys have louder 808s than what I'm using here, so you'll definitely see that there's more higher peaks as it goes down the higher frequencies. Did we freeze? Are we okay? Yeah. So you'll see something like that. You'll see peaks louder going across, right? So you have your kick. Let's say you boosted your kick over here at 60. Okay, if we start to put a dip in that, suddenly you hear your kick come back. Okay, now it doesn't sound like the bass is fighting, and you can still hear the rumble, right? Because we didn't come and cut this off. The rumble is down here in your bass, sub bass frequencies. So we don't care if we cut it a little bit here. We're not trying to hear bass. We want to feel bass, right? Our snare, we boosted our snare at what, 200? Okay. So as I boost this, you start to lose the snare while it's playing, right? Let's see if we can get that to... See how that kind of masks over your snare? But if I create a dip here, suddenly it ducks under your snare. And now every time the snare hits while the bass plays, you can actually hear the snare clearly. Right? This is what I'm talking about. Give everything its own space, give everything its own place. And if something is interfering with it, you gotta start making a decision on what takes lead over the other. What's more important? Where's the priority? Right? This piano and this flute are clashing. Okay, so what's needs to be in the foreground? What needs to be in the background? And we can do this through EQ. Because when we turn down something, okay, this is your stage, and I'm on top here with the lights, and I'm looking down. And as I look down, this is what I'm looking at. It's a square. It's the stage. If I want to turn something up frequency-wise, then I'm pushing it to the front of the stage, which is going to make it sound louder to the listener. And if I turn it down and I push it to the back of the stage, it's going to sound quieter. Got it? Got it. So also, when we're dealing with 808s, there's a lot of stuff going on here, right? I don't need my 808s and my high frequencies. I'm not here to listen or hear bass. I want to feel bass, right? So if we clear all of these frequencies out, now I can hear my brass. Do I still get a rumble? Yes. Can I still kind of hear the bass? Yes. But I can hear everything else too. All of a sudden my hat's opened up more. Doesn't sound like it's fighting. It's not having a fist fight. Like, hey, I'm supposed to be right here. No, I'm supposed to be right here. They're not doing that, right? So again, everything is just that strategy. Let's come in here. I told you, this uses shelves. Okay, so I'm gonna take it over to 60 because that's where I boosted my kit. I'm gonna start there, and I'm just gonna turn that shelf down. Okay, so now 60 over. I just decrease the volume in the 808. It's not cutting it off anywhere. It's just decreasing the volume. I'm about this way. Now I get my kick back, and I still get the rumble, right? Nice, right? Alright, so let's take our mid Q. I'm gonna move this down back to actually I'm gonna put it there because of our snare, right? You still hear the 808, you still get the rumble, but now I can hear my snare. It's very clear, and I can hear my kick. It's very clear. And then if you wanna add the side chain on top of that, go for it, right? But first, clean out the spaces, right? It only takes 1-2 dB, and then you want a side chain to have it duck under more because you're trying to create a pumping sound. Go for it. But at any time that kick hits, you know for sure there's room. You always hear the kick. Alright, so let's go back here. Okay. Bring our volume back to where we had it. Lost some more volume. Back to where we had it. Then let's use it. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I was gonna use the others, tape saturation. That's okay. Let's leave it here. Yeah, let's try it. So, starts the clip. It starts to distort that 808, right? Great, we like it. Turn the volume. That's before, and that's after. Okay? Just get more energy in it. That makes that low end sound a bit more full. And since it's got more energy on the low end, you're gonna get a nice extra rumble, right? You're gonna get that. Yo, Indie Soul in the building. Appreciate you stopping by, man. How you doing this evening? So now when it comes to our drums, we got our kit, snare, the hats, everything. We have our bass, and they're playing very nicely together. Okay, now let's move on to other stuff we have in here. Let's start with this one. Oh, I'm in the wrong thing out there. That's okay. It happens. Wait for it to get to the lower ones. $500, too much, right? So let's take it to about that 250. So we start to lose. About 6. So we can leave it at 8. Or we could bring it up to 10. Let's bring that up to 10. That's fine for me. Lost a little bit of volume. We're going to return that volume. We're already up to 250. We know this EQ can't keep up with that. So we're now gonna go here, right? We're gonna sweep. That's the area we're looking for. So we're gonna go to 500 and we're gonna create a dip. See how it just makes that sound like $1,000,000 all of a sudden? You don't need a $10,000 keyboard, right? You want it? Go for it. But if you're wondering how the sounds get so nice after they play it, it's not the keyboard. Or I should say, it's not the sound itself. It's what you do to the sound, right? That might sound a lot nicer to you than listening to that. Okay? A lot of this is just coming in here and doing some work on the back end. Alright, so I don't want to boost the bass in this. I think we're fine. Plus you have this. So coming in here and trying to boost bass in this, it's kind of on you, right? And then think about it, you're gonna have people rapping and things like that, and they got bass in their voice, right? Do you want them really fighting at this range, right? Because when it comes to the male vocal, you're gonna find that like the bass down there in about the 200s, 250 starting, right, is where you're gonna want to probably boost to get some warmth. So think about that in the long run. So let's leave that as it is. Let's see what we can get over here. I like this right here. So that's our before. This is our after. Right? If we want to, which I think this is already done, but want to, we can now let's keep it on 4. Let's make this a little faster. We're not really caring too much for like transients in this. It doesn't really seem to be any anyway. This is more like a synthy vocal type of sound. Okay, bring our volume back. See more consistency when all of the sounds hit, whether it's the higher sounds or the lower sounds. Okay. When it stops, seems like it's taking a little too long to reset. So we're gonna up the release or decrease the release time. So right when that stops, you see the needle reset, and then it comes back up when it's being triggered again, right? Perfect release time. Don't worry about it. Boom. So now you can hear that sound more consistently across the board. This one, so since this is more of the vocal that I'm gonna have like in the foreground, like this is underneath, right? And I want this to stick out. So I could choose either one of these would be dope, but I like kind of having the bass in here and the vocal just a little bit. But it's right at the 250, but then it'll start to make that slope, right? So we don't lose it completely. We start to lose it at 6. Yeah, so let's take it to 8. Looks like there's a little volume loss. And the reason why I'm using the gain plugin is because there's no way to return the volume in this particular plugin. So it means after I make changes, then I need to put the gain plugin after to return the volume, and then I can keep working. So what I'm doing with this is, as you can see, when the vocal is as loud as it'll get, we're touching here, right? But there's different stuff that's like way down here. We want the consistency, right? So what I'm gonna do, run it through a compressor. What are we gonna do? Take those peaks, we're gonna push them down so they're closer to the valleys, and then we have to bring the volume back up to bring the peaks where they go. And so we're gonna bring those valleys with us. And so the high louder parts and the quieter parts are gonna sound a bit more consistent together, right? Start with the A8 4-to-1. Let's make this just a little bit faster. Let's start turning this down a little bit. Push this as much as I can without. Okay, so now we're back to this -12 part, and let's see what we got. See how we're closer with each vocal now, and we're not sitting all the way down here when that part comes in? That's what we want. It's gonna translate better. That's what you want, okay? Done. Get out of here. What I'm gonna do after this. So, initially, I started with the high pass, low pass, so we can get rid of some of that stuff we don't need. Ran it through the compressor. That way, the compressor's not picking up the stuff that we don't need and essentially making me make the compressor work harder. Made it work nicely, and we're able to get that nice consistency in that vocal, right? Got it? Just check it out. So, out here, and then when that part changes and she starts singing higher, you can actually see it drop down to about here, right? We don't want that. That's gonna get lost in the mix with everything playing, right? For just that moment. So by running that through the compressor, when that high part plays, it's now playing up here. You see what we did? Okay? We brought the peaks down closer to the valley and then brought everything back up. So now there's less of a gap between the quiet part and the loud part. That's what we wanted. Okay? So with that, if you want to EQ, then we can do that. Because of course it's vocals. So let's sweep. You hear? You're starting to hear this sound again. You're starting to hear the box hollow sound. We don't like that, right? So we're gonna cut, put a dip here. See how much nicer it makes that vocal sound? Right? Again, you don't need to hire a singer for $8,000, and you don't need a $20,000 microphone, and you just need to know what you're doing. Whew, that's what I'm trying to tell you, right? So we're just gonna raise this. Really seems to kind of tighten that vocal up. That's it. Right? Too far starts to sound nasty. Okay, we don't want to do that. Just enough till your ear starts to hear that change, like that. Those frequencies they sound like they're gone, and then stop. Okay, so now. So like in here, I also think this is. Okay, so take that, remember? We need to return this volume back. So let's turn this up. They said that boy cold. That's all I'm saying, right? That's all I'm trying to say, right? But we're still not done, because I'm a monster. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our tape saturation. We're gonna put more energy into this vocal. With some of that subtle distortion. Turn the volume back. Okay. It's too good, man. And then what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna introduce a chorus. So I'm gonna put this chorus effect in here, and what this is gonna do is it's just gonna freak your ears out, right? Watch what it does on the panning tip. Sounds like it's wider, right? If you go too far, it starts to sound nasty. Now you're getting the reverse effect. So you listen and you go, where does it sound the cleanest at? That's without it. That's more subtle. So I like this. And so we can do that. Great. You just hear the vocal. Now I just kind of spaces it out a little bit. Right? Cool. And then actually, okay. See how we're like peaking at minus 18, but you started seeing some of those horns while it was playing. They're like way down here. Alright. So let's follow suit. What we're gonna do is cut out the stuff we don't need. Once we get here, we start to lose some of the bass in it. I don't want to go that far. So let's take it to about here. That's fine. We'll cut it off at 8. let's run this. Yeah, why not? Let's run this. We'll do a 4-1. I'm cool with that. Let's I do want to keep some of that right as the horn starts to blow, especially those higher frequencies. I want that to come out. I want to keep the transients there, so we're gonna increase the attack time to allow time for that to kind of come out before the compression comes in. All right. As you notice, it starts to swell a little bit. These are like cinematic brass horns, right? So, well, cinematic brass section, I should say. So we'll do that. We turn up volume. That goes up a little more. So it's okay. It could be a little higher. All right. And then let's come in here. So here's the thing with brass. There are two spots in which brass kind of shines, right? That's the loading. Okay, there's usually some warmth here. Okay, and then you have your clarity up here, right? But if I boost here, because it sounds good, when I bring everything back in, the frequencies in which I'm boosting are probably going to conflict with, say, the vocals or something like that. I'm going to get clashes in those frequency ranges. Since this is not like a main driving sound, it's not the main melody, it's meant to be background. And you put it into the background, right? I was saying about the EQ earlier. Boosting frequencies pushes it to the front of the stage, makes it sound louder to the listener. Cutting frequencies pushes the frequencies to the back of the stage and makes that sound quieter. So once you find where those sweet spots are, then you just need to make a mental note where it should be on the stage. You ever seen a brass section just sit in front of the singer? You wouldn't be able to hear the singer, right? It needs to be in the back. So you would actually cut those, because brass is really energetic, it's really loud, right? And then when it goes up against something, or don't play, we don't care. Cut this off, didn't I? So you can still hear the brass, but the vocals are cutting through. Right? That's what we want. Right? We need everything to play together. So I'm gonna take, sorry, because I got stuff over here. What I'm actually gonna do is, you know what? Yeah, why not? So let's take this. Let's take here, set that to 300. gonna take the EQ here. I'm gonna set that to about 3K. You know what? I should do this. You know what? That's fine. That's fine. I can do it like that. So let's go over here. Now you see how the vocals just seem to come back on top. Okay, and then just to get them to be a little bit more energetic, more tape saturation, right? Still not done, but we've at least done all of this, right? Got our drums together, got our stuff together. Here's what I like to do. Already got it routed, great. So what I'm gonna do, this is a nice little trick. I'm gonna take our LA 2A, right? Just listen, hear me out, listen to it. Did you notice? It's not moving, but you definitely heard a change, right? LA 2A is dope. So basically what we're using this for is the color. So now our instruments are running through the LA 2A, and because it's doing that, the color changes. And because of where it is set by default, it adds a little more volume to our sound. Let's bring that down, right? energy flows from your left to your right, okay? So as it passes in on your left, this is where all the lower frequencies start. Then as it exits or gets to the other side, the higher frequencies start, right? So you can easily prove me wrong by taking your right hand pushing it over your right ear and speaking, you'll notice that all that you're hearing, the frequencies in your left ear, they're all low frequencies, and the high frequencies don't register. And you can do likewise and cover your left ear and you can speak, and all the higher frequencies become more pronounced, and the lower frequencies don't really register, right? That's actually proved me right, but whatever. So, as we're listening to these sounds, you want to know which side's going to pick it up better? Answer, right? So we could pan this over to the right. So the drummer's playing and the closed hat's on the left, but you're the audience. Remember, you're listening to the band playing. So which side is that on? Ooh, ooh, ooh. You cold, you tell me. So let's do that, right? Here just a little bit. It's because the time is kind of like this. So to you hear it more to the left side, right? Not too much, but you're gonna hear it a little more on the left side. So let's do that. Alright. We have our vocal here. I actually got a little plan I'm gonna do. Let's move this to the right a little bit. About there. Yeah, let's do that. Know what I do with. I'm not going to. Let's see how it works. I'm either gonna widen this or I'm gonna pan this. We'll figure out in a second here. What I do want to do, I think we're done with this panning. So let's deal with the stereo and mono, right? For my kick, my snare, fully in mono, right? I'm gonna leave this. That's fine. I'm gonna put my bass, my 808, put that in mono, and all we're doing is we're telling these sounds to go directly in the center, right? So that means when that stuff hits, you're gonna feel it right here in your headphones. Okay. So what it does is it moves those sounds that aren't very melodic, right? And very dynamic, like melodically. It's gonna push it to the center, so it leaves the left and right, right? It leaves the outer stereo field for us to start or start dropping some of these other sounds. So not only do you have to worry about EQing things, giving some space and place, right? But you also got to worry about the stereo field, right? And things are going to be put in this place. It's gonna be left or right, this percentage, that percentage, or whatever, right? And that's we work with that too, right? So what I want to do. Well, definitely this. The brass, I'm gonna widen the brass. You have a brass section, they're pretty much spread out, right? So I'm gonna widen this. I'm gonna widen this about 75%. So when you're widening, panning is just moving one place, right? A certain percentage. When you're widening, you're doing both sides at the same time. So if I want to widen this 50%, then it's a 50% pan left and right. Okay? So if I were to put this at 100%, you would hear brass here, you would hear brass here, but now it would feel like there's something empty right here in the center of your head, right? And then if I were to add the bass, which we put in the center, we just fill it in. You wouldn't even notice it. See? When is pizza? Pizza is tomorrow's Friday, right? So we got about 19 minutes. 18 minutes. So that's how we're gonna do that. But I'm not gonna do 100%. I'm gonna do 75. Still leaves the center. Okay, and then this is completely in mono 100%. So I'm not going to put this, I'm not going to widen it as much, but let's say about 30%. Just to get it out of the center. So the brass is still going to sound wider. Now we have this, we widen it just a little bit, and it keeps it out of the center because we have a kick, we have a snare, and we have bass that are coming in the center channel, right? Okay, for this, I did move it to the right, so leave that as is. Okay, cool. I could widen this as well. We'll do that. What I'll do is let's put this at like 50. It is gonna make it sound a little louder, so you can notice like the volume kind of goes up a little bit. There's that perception, you perceive it as it's being louder, but it's just widening the sound. But if you drop it just a little bit, there's something about it. It's crazy. Like you see the volume increase, but they say there's no volume increase. You're just perceiving it louder. And I'm like, then what is that? But apparently, that's just what it is, right? So we have those, or drums, got a bass, boom, 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 kicks, okay. Usually I just leave these where they are. I don't try and move those, just keep them where they are, but I don't put them in mono. So they still kind of play in stereo, but not forcing it to one channel, right? After this, if you would like, you could start trying to balance out the volume using your faders, right? For every 1 dB that you move your fader, it counts for 3 dBs of perceived volume. So the best way to manage your music, lower it or raise it by a dB at a time, and then listen before you move it again. Ask yourself, is it sitting, like where is it sitting in the mix? Is it too loud? Is it too this. Oh no, it's not here. Are you kidding me? Alright, cool. We're not gonna talk about that. I promise we're not gonna talk about it. Let's put my bass in there. That's the wrong thing to do. There we go. Like, it wasn't being affected by the reverb, so I knew it wasn't in there. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, first of all, I'm going to turn up this high pass filter so we can get rid of all the bass frequencies as far as I can out of our instruments. I don't want our reverb filling in the low end in this, right? I just wanted to pick up those mid-high to high frequencies, right? About this about 3 dB. This is about the 500 hertz area. We don't really want to hear that too much here, so I'm gonna drop that as well. And then this is over in the 5 kilohertz range, and so we can boost that a little bit, right? We want to hear that a little bit. Why not? Our decay is how long, right? We're like making a tail here for the reverb. So the higher the decay, the longer this is going to reverberate, right? Whereas we get shorter decay, doesn't last as long, right? So we can control the reflections in this way. I'm going to take it to about 2 seconds. Sounds about natural, right? Then our pre-delay is just how long it takes before the reverb actually hits. So if you don't want the reverb to trigger when the sound actually hits, okay. If you don't want it to do that, then what you can do is turn this up. Not too much, right? The higher I turn this up, then there's a delay before you actually hear the reverb come in, which sounds crazy at a high level, right? So just a little bit to where it's not directly on top of the sounds, but just right after the sounds play. Then here, we can control how much of it that we actually want in relation to the dry signal. So put this at about 10%. Cool. And then this controls the width of the reverb sound, right? Put it at about 50%. Why did this? Did I not? I feel like I did something. That's okay. But I thought we should have been. Cool. So we did that, and let's do the same thing here. So now, can you make one channel, label a reverb, do all that stuff, run this through here? Absolutely can. However, I like setting these just a little bit differently from each other, so I don't want it to be the exact same. But a lot of it's gonna look similar, right? So let's control that decay time. Put this at about 1.5. Yeah, want to get that reverb off of the kick and the snare. this, I'm actually gonna leave it right where it's at. Worry about that in a second. That's fine for me too. That's cool. So all we're doing is basically creating a room, and we're putting these things in here, right? And so by putting things in the room, it helps to kind of glue everything together by making it seem like it was all done in one spot, right? Just like if you went to go see somebody perform or a band perform, they would all be in the same room, right? Alright, so worry about that. That's down this way. We did miss this sound. It's okay. I'll go back and do that. So here is our mix bus, and this is where we have everything, right? So we're sitting right at about -6. Great. We're still within our target, right? Up just a little bit more, because as you can tell, right? Guess we're not looking here. We might have actually been down here. Okay, those are some peaks, but we're still at about -6. Okay, no, that's good. We don't need this then. I'm happy. So, what we can do now is I'm showing you a before and after. So I've disabled, as you can see down here, all the effects. Okay, so this is what it sounded like before we started. This is what we got now. Okay. And we're still right at our target level. So all we did now is we created a cleaner version of our premix. Now if we get done and our mix is sitting down here and the premix is up here, you goofed up somewhere, right? Go and fix that. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to add, still learning this one, so we're not going to use it. However, once we get done, what I'm actually going to do is create a console emulation, and we're going to have this on every single one of our tracks. Use it a little bit, understand it from EQ, compression, the expander, the gate, right? I understand it from that. However, there's some things and ways you could route it that I'm not quite familiar with, and I'm still adjusting to the sound of it, because it's got a nice little sound, especially if you switch it from line to mic, that it gives, and I'm not quite ready. So what we'll do is we'll use this one instead. This lights up too much. We're clipping bad. We'll back off of it, right? So we can raise this. If it like turns red and then it turns red again like 10 seconds later, that's fine, right? But if it's constantly, as the beat is playing or before it gets done with a loop and it just keeps lighting up, bring it down a little bit. certain places. This at 110, this at 10K, and this gives you a knob to kind of choose in between. Yeah, that just kind of opens up your track. Okay. So this is kind of, it's on you. What I like to do, turn this up a little bit, and then just sweep the frequencies. Turn on our compressor. So in this instance, when you're done with your whole track, once this kind of crosses over the 2 dB mark, you start getting the pumping sound. Check it. Right when it crosses that line, you kind of hear the pumping, right? So I keep it under 2 dB. You're fine. Under 2 dB is great. And then come back, look here. If it's not what you need it to be, if it's too low or if it's too loud, we use this to adjust that, right? So we could bring down the totality of this, or we could raise it up. Alright. That's our before. That's our after. Okay. Boom. And then when you get over here, there's some stuff you can do. But here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna use this bad boy because it's very good, very famous, especially when you're doing mastering, right? I'm not gonna go on and do a full-on mastering, but I like what this does. Alright, so I'm gonna move this to the highest we can get on the attack time. It's 30 milliseconds. When I leave this on auto, when I leave this on a 2-to-1, it's a very gentle compression. And then here we actually have a side chain filter. Put this up anywhere between 80 and 100 hertz, right? Because the low end, right, kind of gets there in the compressor and kind of takes away from what you could be doing, right? And then when I move our threshold till we get about a couple of dBs. That's another tip picked up on the internet. Again, shh. Okay. Top-rated engineers, they know what this is, right? However, don't think you just come over here and do this and that's all mastering is. No. However, I'm doing this just to make the track sound a little bit more consistent before I slap this limiter on here and call it a night. Because I'm not doing any mastering right now. So let's do that. Let's throw on our L2. Set our ceiling or output to -1. Okay, and then let's turn up our gain till we start to trigger this bad boy. Wait for the bass and everything to get back in here. We're not looking to slam this. It's not gonna make anything better about it. It's gonna soften the track, okay? So you just want to know that it's triggering some of the peaks are going into the limiter, and the limiter is catching it. We call it a night. Okay? So there's some things we can do here, right? As far as setting the attack and stuff. But I like where this is, so we're gonna leave it where it is, okay? And something, right? Not that, oh, we're gonna put it on 5 milliseconds, we're gonna put it on. No, these are higher numbers because you're dealing with the whole of your track. And if you're not careful, you mess up your track. Now the limiter, before it turns off, the signal crosses over here, the limiter kicks on, and it's gonna stay on for the next 6 seconds. And if anything else crosses here before that, you basically reset the timer, right? So it's very easy to butcher this stuff up once you start getting into trying to actually like compress or limit a mix when you're mastering. So be very careful because now you're dealing with the whole thing. It's not just a little quick kick sound or a piano sound. It's the entire track you're playing. Okay, so I'm fine with that. Here we go, people.
This is another Aaron production. This is another Aaron production.
Man, I can tell my ears are tired. That's so long. It sounds like a blur. Help me. But as always, I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll come sit down, play it back. If anything on my change will be done, I'll go ahead and do that. And I can bounce this bad boy out, right? And I won't forget the automation, right? But that pretty much includes that. And time for me to get out of here. So, appreciate all of you for coming by. Make sure after about an hour of moderately dealing with music, right? Whether you're creating it, especially if you're mixing, especially if you're mastering. If it takes you more than an hour, go give your ears a break. Let them decompress, right? There is such a thing as ear fatigue, and it's a mother, right? You ever have those moments where you're making music really loud for like hours, and you thought you had everything balanced out right, and then finally your ears got a break, you went to sleep or whatever, you left, you went to go chill somewhere, you came back, and you hit the play button, and you thought somebody snuck in your house and did something to it. I'm just telling you, I'm just saying, there's a thing called ear fatigue, so keep your ears nice, healthy, because they're your money makers. If you can't hear the changes you're making, then this is something that you would like to do one day. It ain't gonna work out for you, man. But yeah, that's it. That's all my time. Remember, stay patient, remain diligent, and as always, be majestic. You can develop the skill to keep calm and carry on. You too can achieve greatness. And with that, I'm out. Peace.